Hello, everyone. How's it going? Dr. Incompetent here, and I'd like to do a complete beginner's guide on how to play Star Wars Unlimited, the new CCG that is in physical version, but we're going to be talking about it in and learning how to do it in Tabletop Simulator, the digital version, just so I can explain the basics, and because most of my viewers are PC players, this kind of works in the wheelhouse of me being a gaming creator and this being a game that you can get on Steam. Tabletop Simulator is how I play friends remotely if we can't travel or it's late or whatever, and also how I playtest a lot of the times. But it also provides a way to look at all of the cards and experiment for free. Now, I play the physical version of this game. I've purchased a bunch of packs for this game, went to some pre-release events, and I've been having so much fun playing Star Wars Unlimited with my friends and at LGS's. So I wanted to kind of explain how to play, and before we can dive into that, I do need to explain like how to get Tabletop Simulator and set it up so that you see what I see on the screen, and then we can dive into understanding the game itself. So to get Star Wars Unlimited like I've got and play it on the PC like I'm going to be doing for this demonstration, you're going to need Tabletop Simulator. You're going to have to purchase this from Steam if you want to do this. Of course, you can just use this guide for the physical card game. It's meant for both. It's about 20 bucks USD. It's not on sale at the moment, but it's a great value for what you get because you can play so many games for free. Once you get an installed Tabletop Simulator, if you want to play like I am and play Star Wars Unlimited for free, you just need to go to the workshop. You click on the workshop tab, and then you just search here for Star Wars Unlimited, and then you go here, and there's lots of different mods that you'll see, but the ones that I recommend right now would be this 2-player board by His Dudeness, and I use this one, and that's what we're going to use in our display. So you just kind of click on the green button down here to install this, or you can get Late Night Gaming's table as well, and use that depending on which one you want. And this one is for if you want to play multiplayer and draft. So if you want this, you just click on the green button and it will install it for your Tabletop Simulator. Then once you have that done, you just fire up Tabletop Simulator. So here's the launch page for Tabletop Simulator once you've booted it up, and you're going to need to make sure that you've already done what we just did, which is kind of enable those mods from the workshop, and then you just need to create a game. Now, you can create a hot seat game if you want to play on the same computer with multiple people, which is great for just play testing, or if you have a friend and you want to use the same computer, or you could do multiplayer to play random people online, or connect with your friends, or do single player if you want to do some experimenting. I'm just going to click multiplayer, and the server name I can set. I've got like a password that I have set here. If you don't set a password, then anybody can join your game, but you can also make it so only your Steam friends can join the page, or you can only do invite only. You could select how many players you want, up to 10, so you can have like spectators and stuff if you want. I'm going to make it public, but with a password, which means that nobody's going to be able to join it. So I'm just going to click Create Server. Now, once you've done that, you get a game situation, and it's saying what game do you want to play. And these are all the games that you've got. Either you can purchase some of the DLC for these games down here, or you can just play like checkers and, roll dice if you want to play D&D, or do Mahjong or whatever. That's all built in and free with the game. But then down here with Workshop, this is where we want to go. And I'm just going to select this one that says Star Wars Unlimited 2-player board. And I'm going to say load. And then once you click this, it's going to pop in and load up all of these assets for Star Wars Unlimited, and it will look like this. And now you're ready to go and play the game. So now that we've got Tabletop Simulator set up, we see a Star Wars game mat right here. I'm going to zoom in using the mouse wheel, and you can move the camera around using WASD. And over here is what we want to do to get started with the game and just explore this space. So if you have a custom deck that you want to import, or one that you've made on Star Wars Unlimited DB, then you can import those here by basically copying the JSON files and uploading them. I might make a separate video on how to do that, but right now we don't need to do that because we're going to be using the 2-player starter deck, which is a product that you can purchase, that I have purchased, that includes some unique cards and is a great way to learn the game. Now over here, additionally, you've got the rulebook if you want to flip through the rules and read those to familiarize yourself with the game. And then over here, on the left, you're going to see these R2-D2s, and these two R2-D2s at the top are what we want to look at. We're going to have, I'm going to just kind of hold left mouse button and drag this over here and zoom out, and then hold left mouse button and drag this down here. So this is the Luke Skywalker starter deck, and this is the Darth Vader starter deck. So I can then just kind of left click and drag out of this R2-D2 to bring some assets out of this, which is the deck of cards, the leader, and the base that I need to play. Now, before I get started doing too much, I need to go over here into the upper right, and I'm going to click my name, and I'm going to change color so that I can be the red player. And this is something you have to do if you are not playing hot seat or you're playing single player, to kind of be able to take acquisition of the cards correctly, is switch between being the red player and the blue player. So I'm now the red player, and here is my base, which is the Administrator's Tower. And I'm going to just drag this into the playmat area that says base, and then here is my leader, and I'm going to drag this and drop it, and it will automatically flip it based on the fact that I'm the red player here, down into the playmat area. And you can see this is Luke Skywalker. And let's talk about what we see right here. I think the best way to explain Star Wars Unlimited is just to play a game and talk to you about what's going on and explain the rules as they crop up so you can see actual game situations, understand the flow, and what's going on. Now, in Star Wars Unlimited, what you're doing is you are dueling. This is a 2-player game in what we're going to be talking about. However, they do have a format called Twin Suns, which is kind of like MTG's Commander for multiplayer formats, if you're interested. But we're just going to be talking about the 2-player duel. And in this game, what you're trying to do is take out your opponent's base by reducing its health to 0. So you could see in the upper left corner of the Administrator's Tower, it says 30. This is how many hit points or how much health my base has. If I have taken 30 damage, I'll move this counter out of the way so you could see, like, let's say I take 30 damage, which is indicated just on Tabletop Simulator by this thing in the middle that you can use as a counter to record your base damage. I lose the game. So if I take my health goes down to 0 on my base, I've lost. And you're just trying to knock out your opponent's base before they knock out yours. Now, the other thing about the base that you need to know is that it provides an aspect to your deck, and they all have a color, basically. So this Administrator's Tower is yellow, and it provides cunning. That's what yellow is called. So yellow, it's kind of like in Magic the Gathering, where there's 5 colors, you know, and you play colors to use the spells of that color. In Star Wars Unlimited, it's very similar to that. You use cards that are of your aspects provided by both your leader and your base. And if you do that, then you play them for free. Now, however, something interesting about Star Wars Unlimited is that you can play cards that are not in your aspect, but you have to pay a penalty of 2 resources to do so. So we're just going to be playing with the starter decks, which have everything within the aspects that are selected here. So I've got yellow, and then Luke, who is my leader, provides blue, which is vigilance, and white, which is hero. So my deck is blue, white, yellow, or however you want to organize those colors. And I've got 3 colors of cards that I can kind of filter in addition to just the gray cards, which there's only a few that don't have any aspect at all. Every player will have 1 base and 1 leader. And these are visible to the opponent, whereas the rest of your deck is not. I'm going to pick up my deck and put it in the deck spot. Just let it go, and it'll flip over for us. And your leader tells you, okay, what aspects you get, but the leader also has abilities most of the time. Sometimes they're passive abilities, sometimes they're active abilities. But in this case, Luke Skywalker has this ability where you pay 1 resource and then you tap or exhaust the leader to give a shield token to a heroic unit you've played this phase. So if you've played a unit that has the heroic aspect on the card, then you can use Luke to give them a shield. That's kind of what this does. Now, in addition to the ability you can use every turn, leaders also have an epic action, which is a really cool part of the game. Epic actions are something you can do once per game. Some rare bases have an epic action, and all leaders have an epic action. And if you control 6 or more resources, you can deploy this leader, which means you can flip them over and then move them into the ground arena and ready them. So in Tabletop Simulator, if I select the card and I push F, it gets flipped over into the unit side of this card. So to flip the leader in Tabletop Simulator, if you were playing in real life, these are double-sided cards. But in Tabletop Simulator, you flip this. Now, normally you push F to flip a card and turn it on its back. But in this case, that's not what we want to do. We push page down to go to the unit side and then push page up with the hand mouse cursor over the card to go back to the leader side. So if I push page down, I will turn Luke into a leader, and it says deploy him in the ground area. So you're going to notice that on the Star Wars battle mat, there is a ground area and there is a space arena. So in the ground arena, I'll move this over, just kind of pick this up, and then I'm going to push E to turn this card over like this. Now, if my cards rotate with Q and E at 90 degrees. If yours are not, make sure you go up here to this rotation degrees and have it selected at 90 so that you can have them basically exhaust and wake up or untap with just Q and E. So what I've got here is Luke Skywalker just chilling now in my ground arena. And he's over here and can fight anything that's in the ground arena. So when you have a unit, I'm going to zoom in on Luke Skywalker so you can see him. You see how it says leader unit, and then up here on the card text it says ground, which means he can only be placed in the ground arena. Ground units can only fight ground units, and space units can only fight other space units unless it says otherwise on the card itself, or you have some other card that would allow it. And when you're fighting, you have a choice of attacking either a ground unit on the other side or just having Luke attack their base directly, and you can always choose that unless an enemy unit has the Sentinel ability, which is kind of like taunt, and means you must attack a Sentinel before you can attack the base, unless also your character has something called Saboteur, which lets you ignore Sentinel. But Luke doesn't have any of that stuff. So Luke, let's look at his unit card and explain it. This number in the upper left is how many resources he costs to play, which means he costs 6. Now, on a leader card, that's not as important because you don't have to pay anything to put your leader in play. All you have to do is have the appropriate number of resources listed on their epic action. This is just here because it triggers some other cards, the value there. Then up here are the aspects that Luke is and provides as a leader. And then this red number is how much damage Luke deals, and this blue 7 is how much health Luke's have. And also, beneath Luke's portrait, it says he is a Force unit and he is a Rebel unit. So those are his keywords that come into play, which is relevant for other cards and triggers as well. Also, if you look at his name, Luke Skywalker, there's a little diamond by it, which means he is a unique unit. That means you can only have one Luke Skywalker that is a faithful friend in play at the same time. Now, there is another Luke Skywalker unit that is unique, but you can also have him in play on your side because he has a different subtitle than Faithful Friend. But you can only have one unique exact duplicate card in play if it is unique. If there's no diamond, you can have as many of those as you want. And in Star Wars Unlimited, you can have as many as 3 copies of a card in your deck. So now that we've talked a little bit about the mechanics of the base, the health of the base, how to win the game, the leader unit card, the 2 arenas, the nuts and bolts of a card, the different aspects that you have on the card, I think it's a good idea for us just to try and play a couple of hands to see how the flow of the game goes, and then maybe move into a 2-player starter game from the Luke Skywalker deck facing the Darth Vader deck. Because if you purchase the 2-player starter, which I'll link in the description below, you not only get some cards that you can only get in the starter, and some of them are quite good, you will have exactly these decks that you will get with this mod from Tabletop Simulator, and you can just play along if you have the physical version or the digital version. So I'm going to push page up to flip Luke back over, and then just kind of push Q and E to rotate him back around and drop him in the leader slot. And I've brought over the rulebook so that we can just make sure that we're setting up the game correctly and read along here. So we're using the 2-player starter, and it contains 2 decks, the Luke Skywalker deck, which we have, and then the Darth Vader deck. And remember, you get them over here. There are the Gen Con versions of the decks, and then the actual versions of the decks. These might be different from the full release. These were promoted at Gen Con. I had some friends who went to Gen Con and played the game with these. But these up here that don't say Gen Con are the versions that you will get if you go to your LGS and buy this, or buy it on Amazon or whatever. And what we're going to do is put these components over here for the Darth Vader deck just to basically bring them into play. But if we want Darth Vader to live over there, we're going to need to change color. So you click up at your name in the upper right, and I'll click on the blue circle, and it will flip over the game board so that then when I grab Darth Vader and drop him into the leader space, everything will rotate correctly toward the perspective of this new player in Tabletop Simulator. I'm just going to click and hold to drag. Like, if you just click and drag, you will take a card off the top. But if you want to get the whole deck, you click and hold until it picks up, and then you can just drop it on there. And now this side is set up. And let's see, do we want to do anything else for Darth Vader? Not right now. I'm just going to switch back to Luke by clicking on red, and here we go. So now we have the 2 starter decks, and each player chooses one of the decks. We've done that. By the way, I think it's amusing that I've decided to have Luke be red and Vader be blue, but it just speaks to the inner conflict of these 2 powerful Force users. Take the 2 playmats and set them up. So when you buy the set, you're going to get these playmats that are helpful in the way that, like, they provide some of the information that you see here. They have the different arenas and everything like that, but they're like paper, so they're almost better as a poster, but you can use them if you want. And what you do is you put your bases facing your opponents. So we've got Luke's Administrator's Tower and Vader's Command Center here. And then behind that, you're going to put the leader in play below your base, and it's on the horizontal leader side. And you could tell it's on the leader side because in the upper left it says leader, whereas on the other side it'll say leader unit, and the card will be in vertical orientation when looked at correctly. So we've got that set up correctly. And then it says randomly determine which player starts the game with the initiative and give the initiative counter to that player. Set aside all other counters and tokens out of play. So let's talk about that. So in Tabletop Simulator, you've got these dice over here on the side. And there's an infinite number of these that you can use and interact with. And it doesn't matter which side, you can pick them up. You could pick up these, tokens if you want as well. But what I'm going to do is just pick up this D12, and I'm going to just drag it over here and put it on the game mat. And then you can just push the R key to roll the die. It pops up in the air. And so Luke got a 10, and then we roll it with Vader, and Vader got a 6. So that means that Luke gets to go first, and you take this counter right here, which is the initiative counter, and you can put it anywhere in your play area to kind of indicate that you have the initiative. I'll put it right here. Just to remind us. So then I'll pick up this die and move it out of the way. Now, in Tabletop Simulator, you can just set it off to the side if you want, and you want to use it later, or you can just hover over it and push the delete key on your keyboard, or if you have one, you could just drag it and drop it onto these trash cans, and it will go away. And these exist permanently to give you another one if you need it. So it's a really cool feature of Star Wars Unlimited through Tabletop Simulator. Another thing I want to talk about is over here on the side, you see that there are experience tokens and there are shield tokens. And so I can flip these like this, doop-de-doop. And so these are cards that you might need while you're playing, which are experience tokens that you place under a card, and it gives it +1/+1, which means it gets +1 attack, +1 health. And a shield token, you put it under a card to indicate that it has a shield. And these are both upgrades which go on units. And a shield, unlike in Star Wars Destiny, which I played a ton of, in Destiny, a shield only absorbs 1-to-1 damage. But in this game, if any damage is hit by a shield, it's all absorbed. So 1 damage gets hit by a shield, and the shield goes away. You just move it away back to the side, off of play. But in this game, if you take 10 damage and it gets hit by the shield, then the shield absorbs it, and you can just put it over here out of play. So shields are great, but they can be ignored by Saboteur, and any upgrade can be targeted and removed by certain cards, as we will see. So those live over there if you need them. Now, another functional thing that's worth mentioning about Tabletop Simulator and these token cards is that if you need another one, because there's only one shield and one experience token, and units can have multiple shields and multiple experience tokens on them, so you just push Control-C to copy it, and then Control-V to kind of paste in more experience tokens if you need them. And then you can just, push delete on them. Also, just another heads up, you can always push Alt to see a kind of closer view of a card that zooms in on you. Or you can use the M key to use the magnifier to really, really get in and, read the artist text, for example. Mona Finden. Love this card. All right. So we've done this. All right. And now we know who the first player is. Now it's time to shuffle the deck and draw 6 cards from your deck to form your hand. So both players will shuffle their deck and draw 6. Now, in Tabletop Simulator, you can just mouse over the deck and push the R key to shuffle. And I like to push R a bunch. You see the cards spinning, and it's been really shuffled. Now, it wants you to draw 6 cards. Now, you can do that by just kind of clicking and dragging 6 cards off, or I can put these back on top here. You can also just mouse over the deck with the hand on the top and then push 6 on your keypad, and you will draw 6 cards. So just like you push the number of cards that you want to draw, and you will draw that many into your hand. And when you get cards into your hand, they appear in 2 places on Tabletop Simulator. They appear here in front of your playmat, and then they also appear down here at the bottom of the screen. And if you move your hand to the bottom of the screen, they will kind of rise up and you can see them. And what's cool about that is wherever you are, if you're over here looking around, you can still see your hand. And then you can push Alt to kind of get a zoom in on the different cards. Like there's Chewbacca, there's Surprise Strike. You can also, use M to magnify, but it doesn't work very well in that situation. Now, it is worth mentioning, I can see these cards and I can see these, but only the red player and the game master or spectators can see the hands. The other player, the blue player, cannot see these. They are not visible on their side if you're playing online or even hot seat or whatever. They can't see this. You want them to maybe not look at the screen or something, but these are hidden from the other player. So at this point, you decide whether or not you want to take a mulligan, and you get 1 free mulligan in Star Wars Unlimited. And what you'll do here is basically discard your entire hand, and then shuffle your discard pile and your hand into your deck again, so you have nothing in your discard pile. I guess you don't discard it, just shuffle it back into your deck, and then draw another hand of 6. And you could do that once in Star Wars Unlimited, and they recommend doing it if you do not have anything that costs 1 or 2 to play in the first round. So let's look at the cost of the cards in our hand. We have Surprise Strike, which is an event. And events are like one-time use actions that provide some kind of effect in the game, and then once they are activated, they go away. So Surprise Strike is going to let you attack with a unit, and it gets +3, +0 for the attack, which means +3 damage and +0 health for the attack. So it pumps them up on attack, which is nice. But we do have this Rebel Pathfinder, which is a unit that costs 2. And then we also have Asteroid Sanctuary, which is a trick, which is like a tactic. It's just an event card that you play this, and it has an action, and then it goes into the discard pile. But it doesn't leave anything behind, generally. This one provides a shield to a friendly unit that costs 3 or less, so it's actually pretty nice. And it exhausts an enemy unit, which taps them, and then they can't act for the turn. So, looking at this hand, I think it's okay. Now, we haven't talked about this yet, but basically, step 6 here is, okay, I've got some stuff I can play. You want to have something that's 2 or less because you get 2 resources to play on your first turn. Everybody starts with 2. And so you want to have something that you can do. It needs to be 1 or 2 so that you can do something. It's terrible if you can't do anything on your first turn. That's why you should mulligan if everything costs more than 2. Now, how do you get resources? So if you're familiar with like Magic the Gathering or something like that, you have mana and then you play it down. Well, this game is very much inspired by Hearthstone, and you get resources every turn, and they grow by 1 each turn, starting at 2 on your first turn. And to get resources, you actually select cards from your hand and then put them into your resource section on the playmat face down. So let's look at that. It says right here, choose 2 cards from your hand and put them into play face down near your base. They are your resources, which you will use to pay for the cards you play during the game. Remember, all these yellow numbers in the upper left corner are the resource cost. So you get to choose which of these 2 cards, which 2 of these 6 cards, rather, you're going to put face down to be resources, and they will be resources for the rest of the game. There are very few ways to get them back once they've been put down as resources, so you could just think about it as like, I'm saying goodbye to these cards for the rest of the game, but they become my resources. So what I like to do strategically is put down cards I either don't think I'm going to play in this matchup, or that are too expensive to get to right now, and I'd rather focus on what I can do at the moment. So some choices would be, do I feel like I want one of these events? And maybe I can turn one of these into a resource if I don't like it. Or I can look at some of these more expensive units like Chewbacca, the Consular Security Force, or General Dodonna, and say, you know what, I know I have more copies of these in the deck, and I can't use them right now, so let's just make them resources. This is one of the cool strategic elements of Star Wars Unlimited, and honestly, it's one of the best parts about Star Wars Unlimited in the sense that, unlike Magic the Gathering, you can never get mana screwed. You can never have either no mana or too much mana, because you get to choose what you turn into your resources, and you will always have them if you wish. Now, in subsequent turns, you can actually not play a resource if you don't want to flip over a card as a resource and keep your hand, but generally, you're going to be making resources so you can play more cards in a turn. So in this case, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that Chewbacca is a great, strong defensive card, but he costs 5, which means I start with 2 resources on turn 1, and then on turn 2, I'll have 3, turn 3, I'll have 4, turn 5, I will then get up to that 5 number and be able to play him, right? So it's going to take a while. I'm going to just take Chewbacca, and I'm going to flip him over by pushing F in my hand. Now, if you drag him out onto the resource area like this, in Tabletop Simulator, people could see Chewbacca. And so, in order to not let that happen, you want to flip him over first in your hand, and then drag him down there. And this is the resource area, this big rectangle underneath the arenas and your leader, and to the left of your deck. And then I'm also going to say, okay, I like General Dodonna because he gives all of my friendly rebel units +1/+1, and you can see Rebel is a keyword that is underneath the portrait of the card, so it's a Rebel Pathfinder, but I don't care that the name Rebel is in his actual name or their actual name, but in between the attack value and the health value, you see where it says Rebel.Trooper. Those are the keywords for this card, which is a ground unit. It costs 2, it has heroic aspect, and it's a 2/3, and then it has the ability Saboteur, which it tells you what this ability means, and it says Saboteur units, when they attack, you get to ignore Sentinel, which means if they have Sentinel, you can just bypass that and attack their base or another unit if you wish, and you get to defeat their shield. So you get to destroy their shield and then do damage, which is fantastic for getting through shields. But this unit is also a Rebel and a Trooper, which means that General Dodonna pumps them up +1/+1. So that's great. I'm going to then choose to flip this over and turn it into a resource. I'm going to keep these events because they're kind of sneaky things that we can do, that we can play. They're low cost, so at least I can use these as an option, so I'm going to keep those. But you might choose to say, you know what, I love Chewbacca, I want to play Chewbacca, I'm going to use one of these events instead, or General Dodonna or whatever, and flip them down and put them as a resource. And that's the great thing. You get to kind of choose what you want to do. So now, Luke is ready to go. Luke has put down 2 resources, and it's time to start. However, you do not start until your opponent has also done this phase of the game. So we're going to switch over to Darth Vader and take a look at Darth Vader. So Darth Vader is playing with green, which is the command aspect. That's the base. It's the Death Star here, and it's got 30 health. And here is Darth Vader, the leader. He is aggression, which is red, and Empire or Imperial, which is black. That's the aspect here. And he has the action where you pay 1 resource and exhaust him, and if you played an Imperial card this phase, you deal 1 damage to a unit and 1 damage to a base. So he could kind of ping things for 1 damage and ping a base for 1 damage. And he flips on 7 resources, and if you flip Vader, you see that he is a 5/8 Force Imperial Sith, that every time you attack with him, you get to deal 2 damage to a unit. So he is incredibly powerful, and we're going to flip him back over and kind of switch him back like this. But he takes 7 resources, whereas Luke flips on 6 resources, so he is a little bit faster to flip over. So I'm going to shuffle this deck by pushing R a bunch of times, and then I'm going to push 6. You see how my hand, by the way, moused over the Star Wars Unlimited deck when I'm flipped like this, is blue? Because I'm the blue player. All right. So here are the cards that I've got. Remember, I've got green, red, and black aspects with the Vader deck, and you'll see them all here. I'm looking for something that's 2 or less, and I have that. I also got a really good draw because I got 2 Super Laser Technicians in my hand. And we'll talk about that in a second. But what did I get that's 2 or less? I got a Viper Probe Droid, which is a unit, and it is a 3 attack, 2 health unit, and when you play it, you get to look at your opponent's hand, kind of see what they're doing. One of the cool things, too, about Star Wars Unlimited, you'll notice, is that it's incredibly thematic. Like, they've done such a good job of connecting the cards to the Star Wars universe and then translating them into card game function. So, you know, Luke is shielding his units, and Vader is doing a bunch of damage, and then the probe droid is like looking at your hand and such, so that everything just seems to be fitting for what they do in the Star Wars movies and in that universe, and then translated into card game form. So it's great. So I like to look for in my opening hand something that I can actually play, and usually a unit, so that I can have some board presence. So the Viper Probe Droid is good. Recruit is a event, and it says search the top 5 cards of your deck for a unit, reveal it, and draw it. So this kind of lets you scry through the top 5 cards of your deck, pick out a unit that you want, and then you put the other cards on the bottom of your deck. This is good, but it's not phenomenal. I'm already happy with my units, so I'm actually probably going to use Recruit as a resource. Then I have a TIE Advanced, which is kind of a beefy unit, and I've got Vader's Lightsaber. Now, Vader's Lightsaber is a unique upgrade. You can only have one in play on your side at a time, and you attach it to a non-vehicle unit, so anybody can use this. Like the Super Laser Technician or the Viper Probe Droid can have a lightsaber, but if it's played on Darth Vader, you get to deal 4 damage to a ground unit. So this costs 2 resources to play. However, if you put this on Darth Vader, not only do you get to the effects, which is at the bottom of the upgrade, +3 attack, +1 health, you also get to deal 4 damage to a ground unit. So you basically kill something and get to pump up a unit. It's incredible if it's put on Darth Vader. Now, I also want to mention, just reiterating the way that the costs work and when you're building decks. If you use these starter decks like we're doing, everything is aspected correctly. So the yellow number in the upper left is the cost in resources. But that 2 is only a 2 if I have Aggression and Imperial represented on my leader and my battlefield, and I do. So because I have both of those there, Vader is red and black, then this costs 2. But if I didn't have red or black, then this would cost 2 extra to play. Now, what do I want to use as a resource? Well, the Super Laser Technician costs 3, so you might think, well, I'll just go ahead and maybe use him as a resource because I have 2 of them. But look at this guy. He costs 3, and he's a 2/1, but when he's defeated, you actually, instead of discarding him, you put him into play as a resource and ready it. So these are ramp cards. Ramp is a function in card games where you are getting more resources than normal to ramp up the rate at which you can play expensive cards. So if we play this guy next turn, on turn 2, and he gets killed, then we will actually have 4 resources, and Luke will only have 3, so we will have ramped ahead, which means we can play the TIE Advanced a turn earlier because we will have an extra resource. So these are great for getting out big, expensive cards, and they're one of the best ways to ramp in the game, and they're only available to green-black. So Command Imperial is a very, very powerful combination in the early stage of Star Wars Unlimited because of these ramp cards. Now, there's ramp cards you can use if you're hero, but resupply, but everybody can use those. So green-black can use those plus this to get a little bit of ramp. Now, there's other ramp too with hero if you think about maybe Han Solo, but we'll talk about that perhaps in another video. So I like this hand. I'm not going to mulligan. So what I'm going to do is say, all right, let's go ahead and use Recruit as a resource. I'm just going to push S, flip it over, or F rather, flip it over, put it down here. And then what do I want to flip? I'm going to flip Vader's lightsaber because it's an upgrade, and I like upgrades, but it's best played on Darth Vader, so I need to wait till I have 7 resources to use that. And I'm in a situation, I don't want to use my TIE Advanced as a resource because I want to ramp ahead and get to play this early. It has a very powerful when played effect. When played, you give 2 experience tokens to another friendly Imperial unit. If you look at the keywords, Super Laser Technician, in between his 2 and his 1, he's Imperial, and the Viper Probe Droid is also Imperial. So I could pump up any of these. Now, it does say another, which means you can't put them on the TIE Advanced. But, like, I could make one of these guys even beefier and then use them to either do damage to the enemy's base or kill a unit or something. So I like that very much. So I'm going to use the lightsaber as my other resource. And at this point, then, we're set up and we're ready to go. So I'm going to flip back to the red player. And now, Luke is ready to take his first turn. So I'm going to move the camera over and we can flip the page to the next portion of the rule book. This is just showing you your base, your leader. By the way, sometimes I will call base battlefield. That is a legacy of me playing Star Wars Destiny for so long. That's what it's called in Star Wars Destiny, and I kind of conflate the two sometimes. It's called your base, so please excuse me when I use the wrong terminology. And these are the tokens that you will get if you buy the two-player starter. You'll get this epic action counter, you'll get these paper damage counters, you'll get this initiative counter. Now in Tabletop Simulator, the epic action token is actually down here. It's a counter you can use, and instead of damage tokens that you put, you're going to use dice, to these red dice to kind of indicate how much damage is on someone, and you can just move this over here, and you can just push the number that you want on the die to flip it to that. And a lot of players that I've seen, even in the physical card game, actually use dice to indicate damage instead of the counters, because the counters they're not convenient to look at. You know, like, you have to count them up every single time. Like, yes, there's increments of 5 and 10, but sometimes when you're, like, at 27 damage, you're, like, looking over there and there's a pile of counters. Whereas if you have dice, it's much easier at a glance to see, and it's easier to pick stuff up with its dice, so it's just however you want to do it. I'm going to then go to the next page. Now, this is extremely important because now we've moved from setup to the action phase, and it says most of the gameplay happens during the action phase, which is true. During this phase, players go back and forth, taking one action at a time. This is a huge difference from, say, Magic the Gathering, where in a lot of card games, you do all of your stuff on your turn, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon, whatever, and you do your whole turn, go through all of your phases, and then your opponent gets a turn. And sometimes you are sitting there for a long time while your opponent is going through all of the paces of their turn. This is a much more dynamic game, like Star Wars Destiny, where you do one action and then your opponent gets to go and take an action, and you alternate actions until there's no actions left and the turn basically goes to the next turn. And you kind of wake everything back up, you unexhaust all your units, you get to draw new cards, play new resources into the regroup phase. But in the action phase, here's what you can do. So Luke has the initiative counter, so he gets to go first, and you can play a card. So we can play a card from our hand. You can attack with a unit. We don't have any units to attack with. You can use an action ability, like, for example, Luke Skywalker's ability right here. You can take the initiative, and you can pass. So we'll talk about these actions as we go. So playing a card is what we're going to actually do with Luke. And it says cards have a cost in the upper left corner. To play the card, you reveal it from your hand, and you pay its cost by exhausting however many resources it costs up here. So we exhaust things by tapping them or turning them 90 degrees, and you can rotate it using, whichever direction you want, using Q or E in Tabletop Simulator. And there are 3 types of cards you can play: units, events, and upgrades. So each card type has different rules when played, as described in the following pages. Units and resources enter play exhausted. So unless it says otherwise, all units and resources will actually enter play exhausted. Now, by the way, this rule manual, I have it covering up the space arena on the playmat, but that's okay for us right now because I want it to be covering up this because nothing's going in the space arena, and I just want to be able to see it as I explain things to you. But that's what's going on there, so you can move this out of your way if you don't need it. Now, all units are going to enter exhausted. This is kind of like summoning sickness in Magic the Gathering, and they're turned sideways, and then they become ready at the end of the regroup phase in each round, which is when everybody's done with the action phase. Then it goes to regroup, where everything becomes ready. Now, there are some units that can attack when they come into play. Maybe they have ambush, or maybe they say ready when they come into play. Or, like we just saw with the Super Laser Technician, they actually become a resource and then are readied. But if it doesn't say that, all units and all resources, like even if you play resupply for a resource, it comes into play exhausted. Now, some leaders, both Luke and Darth, exhaust their to use their action ability, which is this icon right here, that the kind of arrow turning to the right. You see here on Luke, for example, with the action, you pay 1 resource, so that kind of hexagon with the 1 on it is a resource indicator, meaning to use Luke's action, you got to pay 1 resource and then exhaust him to do the action. And that's an action. That's a leader action. So what we're going to do is look at our hand, and I'm going to play the Rebel Pathfinder. So I'm going to kind of reveal the Rebel Pathfinder like that, and then I'm going to exhaust these 2 resources, which pays its cost, and I'm going to put the Rebel Pathfinder in the ground arena. Now remember, it says on the top, it's a unit, so it goes into the battlefield, and on the upper right, it tells if it goes into ground or space. So this is on the ground, so it goes into the ground arena. And I'm going to exhaust it because all units come into play exhausted. So I've got this unit out there. Now I've taken an action, and it's time for Vader to go. Now, Vader can play a unit, and units, as you see here, have all of these different elements to the card itself. By the way, I guess the terminology in Star Wars Unlimited for its health is hit points, health points, whatever you want to say, HP, that's fine. So I hope we all understand that the blue number is its HP or health, and if it goes to 0 or less, it is dead. Unless you're talking about Cherut, the leader unit, but that's a different issue. Now, these are all of the elements that you see in the instruction manual that we've already kind of covered, but power, I guess, is its attack value. The red number there is the correct term in Star Wars Unlimited. And you can refer to this page to just kind of see the makeup of a unit card. Units have a power and an HP value. Power indicates how much damage they do in combat. And if a unit ever has damage on it greater than or equal to its HP, it's defeated and put into its owner's discard pile. Correct. Now, we talked about ground and space, which is the 2 divisions of the battlefield arenas. So spaceships like the X-Wing and the TIE Fighters, they go into the space arena, and they can fight other space units or attack the base. And ground units can fight other ground units or attack the base, but they cannot attack across arenas. So the X-Wing can't shoot at Yoda or the Death Star Stormtrooper, for example. The TIE Fighter can shoot the X-Wing or the base, but it can't shoot Yoda. And the Stormtrooper can't shoot the X-Wing unless the card says specifically that it can do that. Then there are events, and they have an ability. You resolve the ability, and then you put it into the discard pile. And it's the same makeup. It has a cost, it has a name, it has traits, which may become important as a keyword. It has its aspects icon, which affects which decks can play it for the printed cost. And there's the ability text. And then there's upgrades, and we actually just looked at Darth Vader's lightsaber, and we can see the bonuses that it gives, the bonus power, the bonus hit points at the bottom, any traits that are relevant, the irrelevant abilities, the cost, and the name, etc. Okay, so now this is talking about attacking, which we're not ready to do yet. We're just going to flip over and change to Darth Vader. So Vader is saying, oh, okay, well, I don't have the initiative, so I got to go second, and I see that you've played the Rebel Pathfinder. Well, guess what? I'm going to play my Viper probe droid. I'm going to drag it down, and I'm going to exhaust these resources. To do this, I will exhaust my probe droid because all units come into play exhausted, but I have this when played effect. Look at an opponent's hand. So I get to look at the hand, and you basically in Tabletop Simulator, if you're playing somebody online, you could tell them, hey, I got to look at your hand or whatever, and you can't do that. You can't in any way ever grab their cards and look at them. You have to tell them, and then they will flip over the cards to expose them for the player to see. So, luckily for us, we're just playing against ourselves, so we don't need to do that, but that's how that works. You tell your opponent, I need to see your hand, and they show you the hand, and then once you have seen the hand and, are satisfied, this is done. And now the action passes over to Luke. Now, Luke is in a spot where Luke doesn't have any resources left, and Luke can't use his ability because I need a resource to do it. So what I'm going to do is another type of action, which is seize the initiative. Remember, if I go back to the options, I can take the initiative, or I seize the initiative is what I always call it, or claim the initiative. Different verbs, but basically I'm just getting this initiative. And what that means is I get to go first next turn. Now, something important to note about claiming the initiative. If you take the initiative counter, you are done. You do not get to act again this action phase. And then that means that your opponent gets to take however many actions they want without you getting to respond. They still have to take them discreetly, action by action, but they get to do what they want until they're done. Now, usually, most people don't have a bunch sandbag, but it is important to note that if you take that initiative, yes, you get to go first, which is amazing, but you also leave your opponent open to do however many actions they want to do without you being able to respond. The other thing you could do is just pass in this situation. We can't attack with a unit because our unit is exhausted. We can't use an action ability because the only one we have costs something and we don't have any free resources. We are at 0 resources. So all we can do is either pass or take the initiative. And we're going to take the initiative because if we pass, then Vader will just take the initiative from us. Now, passing can be an interesting thing you do to delay, but it comes at a risk. If you pass, then not only do you give your opponent the chance to take the initiative, if they pass after you pass, and as soon as 2 players have passed in a row in a duel, then it ends the action phase and we go to the next side. So, like, let's say Vader had the initiative and I passed, then they could just pass and retain the initiative. And I'm like, darn, I should have taken the initiative. But sometimes you need to pass because you really want them to do something else before you play a card, but you don't want to end the turn. You don't want to take the initiative just yet. So it's part of the sequencing and the strategy of the game to figure out when the right time is to pass. And like, so for example, let's say your opponent had all their resources open and you had, I'm going to flip to it, this card right here, Vanquish, in your hand, which is defeat a non-leader unit. And all they had was Viper Probe Droid out. But you see they have like 6 resources available. You don't want to just take the initiative, providing you have enough resources to play this card. If you're waiting for them to play something and you want to blow it up with Vanquish, and you don't want to just use all your resources to play something because then maybe they play something and you can't kill it fast enough, and you want to kill it right away. So you kind of say pass and make them put down the unit so that you can Vanquish. Now, of course, the mind game is like they know that you're doing that, so they will try to plan around that, etc., and on and on and on. But anyway, you could pass if you want, but we're just going to take the initiative. And then that means we're done, and it goes back to Vader. And Vader is like, okay, my turn. Well, my action ability also requires a resource. I can't use it, and I can't play any of these cards because I don't have any free resources, so I will pass. That's what I'm going to do for my action. And at that point, it's time to go to the next phase, which is the regroup phase. So we're going to flip back over to Luke to talk about that. So once we get through, and we'll look at this again. This is, the rulebook is explaining attacking, but we can't do that on the first turn. So use an action ability, which is, you'll see the tap or exhaust action arrow icon for certain things. Some bases have an epic action, or Luke, some leaders or some units have actions, but we don't have any other ones. Take the initiative. Only one player can take this action each round exactly, or pass. These are all described more fully in the rulebook here. And then you also, as an action, can take the epic action of flipping over your leader whenever you meet the conditions on the card. But we aren't there yet. And now it's time for the regroup phase. After the action phase, play proceeds to the regroup phase. You and your opponent complete each of the following steps in order. So we're doing these like simultaneously, basically. We get to draw 2 cards from our deck. So we're just going to put the hand over the deck and push 2 to draw 2 cards. And then we're going to resource a card. This is step 2 of the regroup phase. You may choose one card from your hand and put it into play face down as a resource, or you may choose not to put down a resource and keep all your cards. So it depends if you want to do this, but early in the game, you want to put down as many resources as you can. We recommend players resource a card each round until they have enough to at least use your leader's epic action, and that's a good rule of thumb. So now what we're going to do is you get to look not only at the two cards rather that you just drew, but all of the cards in your hand to determine which ones you might want to resource. So we drew an Alliance X-Wing and Waylay, and here's the rest of the cards we have. So Waylay is like Unsummon. It's an amazing bounce card that returns a non-leader unit to its owner's hand, and it's cool because it gives you tempo. You know, you can like bounce back something that they just played and waste their time, especially if you pay 3 resources and then they put down like something that cost 8 and you bounce it back for 3. It's a big tempo play, and it slows them down. But you can also, if you have like, you know, a powerful unit on the board that's taken a lot of damage, you can return your own unit if you want, and then it comes back to your hand and it's fully healed, and then you have to play it again, but it will come out at full health. Or if it has a powerful like enter the battlefield or when played effect, you can kind of get that again. So this has some versatility to it. That being said, initially my thought is what I like about my setup here is I could, at 3 resources, play my Alliance X-Wing, and because it is a heroic unit, I can use Luke Skywalker's ability to then use my remaining resource and give the X-Wing a shield. So I have this like shielded space unit out there. Remember, shield upgrades last until defeated. So it's not like it's one time. It just goes on there as an upgrade until it gets defeated by a card or combat damage or something. So that seems really good. We could also play Asteroid Sanctuary if we wanted and exhaust their probe droid and then put a shield on a friendly unit that costs 3 or less, which is the Rebel Pathfinder. That's nice. But when I'm looking at this, that's okay. Like, I could totally do that. However, the only thing that holds me back from doing that is that I will have a resource left that I don't get to use, and I like to try to use all of my resources if I can to be more efficient so I don't waste anything. So that's an option, but, you know, maybe I don't mind that because if I exhaust their probe droid and put a shield here, I can have the Rebel Pathfinder, for example, then kill their probe droid, lose the shield but take no damage, and remove that threat from the board all together for basically just paying 2 resources to kill the unit for free, in effect. But maybe I don't feel like doing that, so what do I want to do? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use Surprise Strike as a resource. So I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to put it down into the resource pile. Now remember, it needs to go in exhausted because all resources and units come into play exhausted. So there we go. It's exhausted. And then once that's done, you ready all of your exhausted cards in play, including units, resources, and your leader. When both players have readied all their cards, then you go to the action phase, starting with whoever has the initiative counter. So you can actually just click this ready button to just flip over all your cards so you don't have to do it. Really convenient in Tabletop Simulator, and I am ready to go. But Vader is not ready to go, so we need to change colors over to Vader and say, all right, Vades, what you going to do? So Vader gets to draw 2 cards. So we click 2, and Vader has drawn General Veers, which he has a nice anthem effect of all friendly Imperial units get +1/+1, which is cool. And then we got the Gambit, I am your father. Deal 7 damage to an enemy unit unless its controller says no. If they do, draw 3 cards. So this is a funny card. It's very thematic, but it's not very good. And the reason is it's expensive, and they can not have their unit die. And drawing 3 cards, while that sounds really good, in so many games, card advantage is fantastic. in Star Wars Unlimited, it's actually in a weird place where it's not as good as you'd think it would be, because you get to draw 2 cards every round. And so you're not usually, unless you're playing a specific deck that has a lot of low value stuff, you're not usually like hurting for cards. So this is definitely going to be the card that I resource, because I don't really want to play this. I don't have any desire to do that. And I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to put it down in the resource pile, and I'm going to flip it to exhaust it. And then I've done the business of drawing cards. I've resourced a card, and I'm then going to ready all of Vader's stuff. And Vader says, okay, we're ready to go. And now it is Luke's turn. So we're going to flip back over here. Bam. And Luke gets to go back to the action phase and do what we want for the action phase. Now, I'm actually going to pick up the rule book and kind of put it over here for the time being, because now I need to use the space arena. Because what Luke wants to do is potentially play an X-Wing. However, now we get to talk about sequencing. And this is, some of the great strategy in this game. What do I want to do first? I don't have 2 main phases like in Magic. So what's the best thing to do first? Should I play a unit? Should I use an event? Should I attack with my own unit? Well, we have a lot of choices for what seems to be the right play. And if I were to, for example, play my Alliance X-Wing and pass after, that's my action, so then Vader gets to go. Vader could attack with his probe droid and kill my Pathfinder. And that's fine, because, as we'll talk about when we look at combat, in combat, units deal damage equal to their power to each other simultaneously. So the Rebel Pathfinder is 2 power, 3 HP, and the probe droid is the inverse, 3 power, 2 HP. So they would both die in that exchange, and that could be fine for me. I could not care about that. But my Rebel Pathfinder actually has Saboteur. So if I were like, I want to keep trying to attack the base, then I don't want this to get killed before it gets to use Saboteur and go through Sentinel or whatever. I want to keep this, so I want to attack with this unit first. So this doesn't come into play right now because there's no Sentinel, there's no shield. But what you need to decide is, do I want to attack with my unit to ensure that I get the damage to where I want it to go, or do I want to kind of do something else and hope that my unit is still there? Because Vader could also just play a card that kills this thing before it gets to act, and then I'm going to be sad. And that's part of the timing, is if you can kill an enemy unit with a card before it gets to act, you rob them of their action and sort of get ahead in tempo. So that could be really good. And because of that, and I don't know what Vader's got up their sleeve, I'm going to, on Luke's phase, attack with the Rebel Pathfinder. So let's take a look at combat right here in the instruction manual. Attack with a unit. Attacking is the primary way to deal damage to the opponent's base and win the game. You can also attack enemy units, and that's the strategy. Should I attack the base, or should I attack their units, right? It's like, should I attack face or attack unit? Do you want to control the board, or are you trying to just hit their base and knock it out as fast as possible? Early in the game, and in this situation, for my strategy with Luke, I'm not trying to necessarily rush down Darth Vader and attack their base for 2. It's not that valuable of a play to me. I would rather take out their unit to clean up the board. However, maybe you say, you know what, I'm going to attack your base, and then I'm going to make you attack my unit and kill it, and then that way I get 2 free damage on your base, and then we both trade anyway. So that's also something to consider. But what if they say, you know what, that's fine, I'll race you, and I'll hit your face as well? Is that what we want to happen? That's the question. Now, what you do to attack is you exhaust the enemy or your unit, and you choose what to attack. So in this, the attacker gets to choose. Do I want to attack the probe droid or the base? Difficult decision. I'm going to think about the fact that Darth Vader is more powerful on Resource 7 and maybe is a little bit slower than me. So what I want to do is perhaps try to chip down their base before they get big, powerful cards down. And instead of attacking the Viper Probe Droid and cleaning up the board, I'm going to go ahead and attack the base for 2. So I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to attack the base. Now, if there is an enemy unit that has Sentinel, which is a keyword that's in red, like Saboteur, then what I need to pay attention to is the fact that I have to attack a Sentinel unit before I attack another unit or attack the base. If there's 2 units that have Sentinel, I get to choose which one of those I attack, but it has to be something with Sentinel unless I have the red keyword Saboteur, which I do, and I could ignore it. So in this case, I have it, but I don't need to worry because the probe droid doesn't have Sentinel. So I'm going to say I'm going to do 2 damage to the base, and I'm going to flip this here, and I'm just going to put 2 damage. I could put 2 damage like this, but in Tabletop Simulator, in this particular mod I've got, there's base damage that I can just click on the center to keep this very clear. So you see right here, the base now has 2 damage on it. So I can see, okay, they got 2 damage, I got 0 on mine, and I've exhausted my unit, now I'm done. And we flip over to Vader. And Vader's like, okay, I see what you did. I don't like it. Now, what's Vader want to do? Well, Vader is going to say, I don't like that you did that to me, and I actually am interested in keeping the board clean so that I can survive for the long game. So I'm going to attack with my probe droid and kill your Rebel Pathfinder. So I'm going to exhaust my probe droid, and I'm going to say, I declare the Rebel Pathfinder as my target for the attack. I have a power of 3, so I do 3 damage to the Rebel Pathfinder. Now, it will die, but the Rebel Pathfinder gets to retaliate with its own power and deal 2 to the Viper Probe Droid, who only has 2 hit points, so they will both die. Now, there are some cards that say this unit gets to deal its damage first, like it has first strike, basically, and then in that case, you would resolve their damage first, and if the other unit dies, then they don't get to retaliate. But unless otherwise stated, the damage is dealt simultaneously, so both of these units die, and they are put into the discard pile, just like that. So now, Vader is done, and we go back to Luke, and Luke is like, all right, I don't like what you did. You killed my rebel with your dumb robot. It's my turn. So I'm going to put this Alliance X-Wing into play. So I'm going to put it down here. I'm going to exhaust 2 resources to pay the cost. Exhaust the unit, because all units come into play exhausted. And I'm like, yeah, what do you think about my X-Wing? And then we're going to change back to Vader. And Vader is going to say, I don't think much of it at all. I'm going to play a Super Laser Technician. Now, I could play General Veers, but he's a 3-resource 3/3 that pumps up not himself, but other friendly Imperial units, which I have none of now. And also, the Super Laser Technician, we know we want to play him because he basically will get to ramp us if we can defeat him. Now, strategically, maybe Vader should have said, you know what, I should have left their rebel unit alive, because now the Super Laser Technician can't die, and I don't get to use the benefit of the extra resource. Well, I'll tell you what, that's true, but here's some information for that calculation. Number 1, most units in the game are ground units. There are fewer space units that generally come out than ground units. So it's a better bet that it's going to be a ground unit. But also, Vader can, not this turn, but next turn, if I play an Imperial card, he could deal 1 damage to a unit and to a base. I could kill my own Super Laser Technician to get the effect, to make sure that it dies. And that is actually a reasonable play. Now, we want to attack with it first, obviously, but then in that case, we can kill it and get the extra resource. So we're going to play the Super Laser Technician, and we're going to pay 3 to do that. It comes into play exhausted, and we're done. And we're going to flip it back over to Luke. Now, Luke is going to say, I can't believe you are firing up the Death Star with the Super Laser Technician. This is terrible, Dad. I need to use my leader action. Now, it's a great thing to put a shield on this. However, I will just say, maybe you don't do that. The other play, instead of doing the leader action, would be to notice that Vader is tapped out, no resources left, and maybe I want to keep going first and retain the initiative, so I pass on doing the shield and take the initiative. Now, there's merit to both plays. However, I will tell you that Luke's ability only works on heroic units that enter this phase, so I can't play a shield on the X-Wing next turn, so I am going to actually do it. So I'm going to exhaust this, exhaust the leader. Well, you exhaust the leader first, then you pay the resource, and then I'm going to Control-C, Control-V, and put this here. And now what you can do is put this like this, and then drag it like that, so that it goes underneath the card, if you wish, to kind of indicate there's the X-Wing, and it's got a shield on it. And now Luke is done, and we flip back over to Vader. So Vader, at this point, has no resources left, and Luke is tapped out over here. So I'm going to, as Vader, claim the initiative, and just put it over here. And then it goes back to Luke, and Luke says, well, there's nothing for me to do, so it's time to pass. And Luke will pass and end the turn. And now we go from the action phase to the group phase, regroup phase rather, and we draw 2. And here we go. Well, look at that. We got Luke's lightsaber and Fleet Lieutenant. So Fleet Lieutenant is actually pretty tremendous, but then so again is General Donna. But I'm kind of like choosing, all right, at this point, let's see what we drew. Let's see what our game plan is. Let's see how many resources we have. And let's think what we want to do in terms of what do we want to turn into a resource and what might our next turn look like. Well, I could play Fleet Lieutenant at 3 and then use his powerful one-plate ability. Fleet Lieutenant is one of the better commons in the set. You play this thing and you get to attack with a unit. This is called action cheating, basically, when you get to do 2 actions in 1. So I play this guy, and when played, I get to attack with a unit, and if it's a rebel unit, which is basically every unit in this deck, it gets +2/+0. So I can then use this guy to attack with my X-Wing in one go and do a bunch of damage to the base, do 4 damage to the base, which is cool. And this guy is a nice big body. He's a 3/3, which, severely threatens the Super Laser Technician, although the Super Laser Technician doesn't care too much about it, because it's intentionally trying to die. But then, because this is only 3 resources, I could use Luke, and this is a heroic unit, to put a shield on it to protect the fleet unit from being killed by, I don't know, Darth Vader's ability or something else. Or I could just play General Donna, who is a 4/4, and we'll pump this up +1/+1, and we'll be able to take the 2 power and not die to Vader's ping of 1 if he decides to do that. So that's also something that I can do. Now, in general, kind of like Hearthstone, whenever you can use a leader's power or ability, it's a great value play if you can get it in. So I might do that. And then if I decide to play Fleet Lieutenant, well, what do I want to turn as a resource? Luke's lightsaber is 2 and is great on Luke, and we're actually getting closer to the 6th turn for Luke, so maybe I want that. And if I wanted to be really annoying, I could waylay the Super Laser Tech and slow down Vader's ramp also as a play. Actually, that's not bad, is it? It's annoying, right? And then so let's go ahead and put Asteroid Sanctuary down as a resource. I could use Asteroid Sanctuary, but I already have a shield, and exhausting this guy doesn't prevent Vader from killing it. So we're going to flip this over and put this down here and exhaust it. And then we've drawn 2. We've played our resource. We're going to ready everything, and we're going to switch back over to Darth Vader. And Vader actually has the initiative, so he will get to go after we do this stuff. So we're going to draw 2 by pushing 2 on the deck with the mouse over it, and we've drawn Admiral Ozzel and a big old ATST. So when I'm looking at this, I'm like, well, the ATST is a little pricey. Admiral Ozzel allows you to play an Imperial unit from your hand, paying its cost, and it enters play ready, and then each opponent can ready a unit. So this guy is sneaky, because he lets you play a unit and then ready it so you can attack immediately with it, but then it gives that ability symmetrically to your opponent. However, like, you could do cool stuff like where you play this after they claim the initiative and they don't get to go again. Well, then you can use that if you can kind of delay. But at this point, I'm looking to perhaps play General Veers or another super laser tech, and then use Vader's ability. So I'm going to flip over Admiral Ozzel actually instead of the ATST, just because if I play 2 super laser techs and I start getting resources, I could put this out really fast, and I want to have something that I can just slam onto the board that's powerful, and it's 6 resources, which Luke flips at 6, so, you know, we're going to have to contend with that. So I'm going to flip over Admiral Ozzel, and I'm going to put this over here and just flip him down as a resource. And then I'm going to click ready to wake everything up. And it's my turn, it's my action with Vader. So what do I want to do? Well, I'm worried about maybe not getting in an attack with the Super Laser Technician. Oh, sure. So what we can do then is hold back and just chip in some damage with the Super Laser Technician to make sure that we use this guy. So I'm going to just attack the base right here for 2. And now we're even on damage, and we're going to flip back over to Luke. All right, so now it's Luke's turn. Luke has this X-Wing up here, and there's this guy. Now, waylaying this guy is still useful because it'll delay its ability. But I think that, what if instead I say, you know what, I'll just save this for whatever big thing that they play to slow it down, and I'm just going to put the pedal to the metal. And let's go ahead and play the Fleet Lieutenant right here. And spend 3 like this. And then the Fleet Lieutenant says, when played, you may attack with a unit. If it's a Rebel unit, it gets +2/+0. The X-Wing, the Alliance X-Wing, is a Rebel vehicle fighter, and it's a space unit, of course. So we're going to attack with it, and it will do 2+2, 4 damage to the base. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we're done. And it's cool because we've action cheated, which means that we might be able to get the initiative back because we've kind of consolidated some actions. We'll see. Now we're going to change back over to Vader, and Vader's like, oh, I see what you did. But that doesn't bother me too much because, wahaha, I'm going to play another Super Laser Tech, and I'm going to exhaust all of this like that. And then it goes back over to Luke, and Luke is like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to use Luke's ability and go ahead and I'm going to copy and paste this shield and put it on the Fleet Lieutenant like that. So the Fleet Lieutenant has a shield, and then now it's Vader's turn, and Vader's like, I see, you've got shields everywhere, it's annoying, but now it's time for me to use my action. I'm going to pay 1, and I have played a resource, or I played an Imperial unit this turn, which was a Super Laser Tech, and I could deal 1 damage to a unit and 1 damage to a base. So I'm going to use this, oops, beep, beep, beep. And I'm actually going to kill my own Super Laser Tech. I could pop a shield, which is not a bad play. And actually, you know what? Let's think about this. I could pop the super laser tech, and then he comes into play ready. But one ready resource this turn doesn't do that much. So we could instead go ahead and get rid of this guy's shield by using Vader's ability, and we'll put a damage on the Luke's base like that. And then it goes back to Luke, and Luke says, okay, I want to claim the initiative. And Vader will pass because Vader doesn't have anything else to do. So now, what we're going to do is draw 2. And Luke drew the Fleet Lieutenant again and the Cloud City Wing Guard. And the Cloud City Wing Guard is nice because he has Sentinel, which means that if we put it down, the Super Laser Techs would have to run into him instead of the Fleet Lieutenant, which is a thing. But we probably want to play General Donna to pump up both of these units and put a shield on him with an extra resource. Not a bad idea. So I'm actually going to say I don't really need this Cloud City Wing Guard right now. I'm going to flip him down. I like the Fleet Lieutenant better. I'll play that as the resource, and I will ready up. And then it's time for Vader to do their preparation. So Vader's like, all right, fine. My son, I've trained you well by being an absent father. Okay, and then I'm going to come in here and, well, I readied first, which was not correct. But you'll see a lot of players do both at the same time. I haven't seen a situation where that actually matters if you draw and then ready or whatever, but let's just do it right. So we'll draw 2. Admiral Mahdi. He's steepled his fingers here. When defeated, you may ready a Imperial unit. So he's cool because he lets you kind of go again when he dies, and you can use Vader to intentionally kill him and then ready a unit again, which is cool. You can even, if you have Vader unit out, you could attack and then, exhaust him to attack and then kill Admiral Mahdi and then ready Vader to get to attack twice. Fun stuff like that. And again, I'm going to just resource I Am Your Father immediately because I don't care for the card. And I'll put it over there. There are places, I guess, where that could work. Maybe you're low on cards, or maybe, there's something where they would use that. They would let you kill the unit, but giving them the choice is just not great. So I'll put that down as a resource, and now I'm going to ready everything for Vader, and we'll go back to Luke. And Luke says, all right, well, what do I want to do? I know I want to get some damage in. And yet I can make the damage more if I play General Donna first. So I am actually going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and tap 4 resources and put out the General. And he buffs up everybody. On my side, all the rebels, which is everybody, except for him. And Vader's like, I hate that General. Didn't I kill him? Or maybe it was General Veers that did that. Somebody did it. Okay, and then at this point, Vader's like, all right, I got 5 resources to spend. I got my super laser techs out here. And honestly, if I kill a super laser tech and flip it to get 6, I can drop an AT-ST this turn, which seems amazing. So Vader's like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to kill that annoying General Donna. So I'm going to run my super laser tech into General Donna. And that will kill the super laser tech and do 2 damage to General Donna. So I will pick up a die, click, push 2, mousing over it to put it on a 2 to indicate 2 damage on the General. And then the super laser tech dies. But remember, when defeated, you may put it into play as a resource and ready it. So you flip it, and we are going to ready it. So Luke is like, what have you done? That's scary to me, but I've already made my bed. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use Luke's action to put a shield on my good buddy General Donna so he doesn't get killed by the other super laser tech. And then it goes back to Vader. And Vader's like, oh, my son, you've made terrible decisions. I'm going to run my super laser tech now into the fleet lieutenant because I'll do more damage that way. And put 2 damage over here, and then Vader can ping it to finish it off. So it goes into the old discard. No, wait, not discard. Resource. That's 7 resources. Ding, 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 ding. This is really scary. And Luke could have definitely anticipated Vader coming down right here and thought about waylaying one of those super laser techs instead of playing General Donna. But maybe Luke got too greedy and made terrible choices. So Luke's like, oh my goodness, Vader is unleashed. This is awful. What am I supposed to do? You know what? We're going down swinging. I'm going to race you, buddy. I'm going to hit the base for 4 with my fleet lieutenant. And Vader's like, ow. How could you do that? Now, here's a trick. When you flip a leader, it tells you for the epic action, flip him, ready him, and move him into the ground arena. Which means if I use his ability, it will exhaust him, but when you flip him, I will get to ready him. So let's use that ability by first playing the ATST. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 resources. Huge ground unit with Overwhelm. This is a new keyword we haven't seen. Overwhelm is like Trample in Magic the Gathering. When you attack an enemy unit, you deal excess damage from its HP to their base. So, for example, the Fleet Lieutenant has 1 HP remaining. If I attacked with the ATST and did 6, it would take 1 to kill it, and then the remaining 5 damage would trample or overwhelm over and hit their base. Which is what an ATST should be doing, right? Just overwhelming and trampling over. So that's what happened, and Luke is like, gulp, I'm a little bit scared, but here's what we got to do. I got to attack the base for 3. General Donna pumps this rebel unit up by 1. Okay. And then we go back to Vader. Dun, dun, dun. Then Vader is like, I'm going to use my ability to deal 1 damage to a unit. And then that 1 damage will kill the Fleet Lieutenant. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to show you why. I'm going to be sneaky with Vader. I'm going to do 1 damage to General Donna instead and get rid of his shield. And then I'm going to do 1 damage to the base. And then Luke is like, well, I got nothing left, so I'm just going to lock in going first, and I will claim the initiative. So you can just kind of, pick it up and indicate that's what I'm doing. You can also push tab in Tabletop Simulator to make this arrow and donk, like this gong sound, So they're like, oh, okay, that's what you did. Yep, that's what I did. And then I'm going to change colors over here. And now Vader's like, it is time to use my epic action and flip. And we're going to flip Vader. And Vader has dropped down into the ground arena. And he is readied. So Luke has claimed the initiative, so he doesn't get to do anything. So on attack, you may deal 2 damage to a unit. So in this way, what I can do right here is go ahead and just kill both of these units. Now, actually, I couldn't have pinged the Fleet Lieutenant and killed it because of General Donna. I forgot about that. So he actually has 2 health, so it wouldn't have worked anyway. But we're going to go ahead and attack, and then we're going to just kill the General with 2. The general's like, that stings, Vader. And we'll just put him in the discard pile. And then, what do I want to do with Vader? Do I want to clean up the board, or do I want to hit the base for 5? And you guessed it. I don't care about the board because I have Overwhelm. And I am racing, though, so maybe I do care. Maybe I don't want to die. But I've got so many more resources at this point that 5 damage to the base feels really good. And I know I can kill this just with his on-attack ability next turn anyway. So even if they sneak in 3, don't care. I'm just going to put 5 on the base. Let's go. And a huge portion of the strategy in Star Wars Unlimited is knowing when to focus on the base and when to focus on units. To really do that well, you have to know what your deck is all about, what your game plan is. And remember, we're only playing to 30, so let's go. And now Vader is done. So Vader will pass. Draw 2. Vader got another super laser tech, which we actually, I mean, it's nice, but we don't need it that much. But of the units that we have, we probably want a space unit to contend with this X-Wing and not let it just run wild. And I don't really need a Viper probe droid right now. I don't care that much about looking at their hand. And Admiral Mahdi actually is sweet because we can play him and then actually nuke him with Vader to get 2 attacks in with Vader or 2 attacks with the ATST. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this and put it down as a resource. And then ready everything. Switch over to our good buddy Luke Skywalker. And Luke is like getting alarmed at this point because we are behind, but this could be a big swing turn because we can play Luke this turn. So there is that. All right, we drew R2, which is great, and another X-Wing. And what do we want to get rid of? Well, R2 is phenomenal because he lets you basically scry 1. Look at the top card. If you like it, keep it. If you don't, put it on the bottom. But in this spot, he's the least of what I would want to play right now. So I'm going to use him as a resource and put him out and ready Luke. And now it's Luke. We've got 6 resources and Luke needs 6. So we can flip Luke. If you want to see what he does, you can, flip him over and read his stuff. But what I think I'm going to do right away is say, you know what? I need to either do damage to Vader or get rid of the ATST. I can't do both, sadly. I could waylay the ATST, which is a great play. But I could also Fleet Lieutenant and then attack with this guy, pump him up 2, and put 5 into Vader to try to get Vader off the board. Or I could be like, YOLO, let's go all base and then attack the base for 5. But I don't think that's going to win. So instead, I'm going to try to stabilize on the board a little bit. And we're going to go ahead and play... the Fleet Lieutenant. And I'm going to do exactly what I said. And I'm going to just attack into Vader. I have Waylay to work with removing this unit, but Waylay does not work. It says a non-leader unit. So Vader, as it says in the upper left, is a leader unit. This doesn't work on him, so that's a waste. So instead, I'm just going to pump this guy up to do 5 power and hit Vader. Vader has 8 hit points, but 5 is a lot. So we're going to kind of put 5 damage on Vader, like that, and this guy will die. He would probably die anyway to Vader's just on-attack ability, so let's just do that. Now, it's Vader's turn. Vader's like, ow, you hit me. What do I want to do? Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. It's maddening. It's actually not that maddening. I'm going to... I have enough 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to play... I could play Veers, Madi, and Super Laser, but I'd rather play Veers and TIE Advanced. So what we'll do is... How order would I want to do this in? I'm going to attack with Vader. I don't want him to get removed before I get to attack with him again. So I'm going to attack with Vader, and we're going to do 2 damage to the X-Wing and get the shield out of there. And then we're going to put 5 damage on the base. And then Luke is like, oop, not change team, rather, but change color. Luke is like, how is this possible? I hate this. But here's where we are. So now, okay, I've played a unit. So I'm going to actually protect my fleet lieutenant with Luke, I think. What do I want to do? I have 6. So I can't play everything, but I could play Waylay Luke's lightsaber and use his ability, and that's what I'll do for value purposes. I'm going to put a shield over here on this dude. No, I'm not. I can't do that. I want to do that. I'll do that maybe later. I got to play Waylay right now and get rid of this thing before it attacks me. So we're going to Waylay, and we're going to pay 1, 2, 3 to do that. And Waylay says return the non-leader unit to its owner's hand. So we're going to put it up here. Now, they have enough resources to play it again, but because it comes in exhausted, they won't get to attack with it this turn, and it helps us kind of gain some tempo and maybe maintain the board or stabilize a little bit. If we can kill Vader, we're going to be in a great spot. Okay, so they're like, whoa, that changes my plans. What do I want to do now? Well, I think I want that ATST on the board. But if I play it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, the only thing else I could play is Admiral Mahdi. It's not bad, but I can't actually kill Mahdi this turn and use him to his full purpose. Now, this is public knowledge, what Luke is. So you can look at his card. He's a 4/7, so he can do 4 damage. So Vader is at 3 health. So if I actually play the TIE Advanced and give 2 experience tokens to Vader, Luke doesn't kill him. Now, we don't know that Luke has the lightsaber, but this is the play I'm going to do. I'm going to put down the TIE Advanced. 1, 2, 3, 4 in a desperate attempt to keep Vader alive. Because remember, every time Vader is alive and gets to play, he gets to do 2 damage to a unit when he attacks, which is great. So we're going to put 2 experience tokens on Darth Vader. So I just copy these, Control-C, and then Control-V. Remember, experience tokens are upgrades to give +1 power, +1 hit points, and we're just going to kind of put them under Vader like this. And so Vader is now a 7, and he's taken 5, so he's a 7/5. Now, you could make the argument that I should have done this first before I attacked with him, and yes, that's very possible, but I wanted to get that attack in before Vader died, and by doing that, we were able to pop the shield on here. I didn't want to play the TIE Advanced into space when the X-Wing had a shield, because it just kills this thing and then doesn't take any damage, which is not great. So now it goes back to Luke's turn, and Luke's like, I think it's time, Father. But first, I'm going to use my power for full value and put a shield on the Fleet Lieutenant. Okay? And then it goes back to Vader. And Vader's like, all right, I see. I'm going to actually make Vader even more diabolical right here and play General Veers. It also pumps up my TIE Advanced so that the TIE Advanced does not die from the X-Wing. Because General Veers gives Imperial units +1/+1, and the TIE Advanced is Imperial, and, well, so is Vader. He has that tag of Imperial, or keyword tag. Actually, what do they call it in this game? I'll look at it in a moment. That's done. So we're done with this, and we'll pass. Let's switch over so I can see this right side up. Abilities. Traits. Okay, those are called traits. So, different card games call those different things, and sorry, I always conflate my card game terminology. They are called traits. That is the correct terminology in Star Wars Unlimited. I apologize for continuously calling those keywords, tags, affiliations, whatever. All right. Now, Luke's like, okay, it is time, and I see that this is very scary to me because it can kill me and survive, so I need to just attack the base with the X-Wing before it dies, because it's probably going to die. Now, I could try to, flip Luke and put a shield on the X-Wing, but I don't have enough actions to do that. It doesn't seem like that's in the cards for me, so I'm just going to hit the base for 2. And it goes back over to Vader, and Vader's like, oh, wait. Let me go back. No, that's dumb. I forgot. The X-Wing can't attack right now. So, yeah, instead, let me take that damage off. It's exhausted. By the way, I haven't mentioned this yet. I've done it, but I don't think I explicitly said it. This was something that confused me as a new player. You can attack exhausted units. So, in Magic, you're always thinking well, it's tapped, you can't block. But you declare what you attack, like in Hearthstone in this game, and you can target exhausted units. Okay? So just full disclosure on that. So no, I'm going to flip Luke. So Luke flips and readies. And on attack, you could give another unit a shield token. So we can shield this up. All right? Now, at this point, what I'm going to do is go back to Vader. And Vader is like, all right. Oh, I forgot to tap the resources for General Veers. Vader's like, I did everything. I'm good. I'm going to take the initiative away for myself. And then Luke is like, all right. It's my turn to kind of do what I want. And what do I want to do? Well, if I attack with Luke, I cannot kill Vader. And Vader is doing 7-8 damage right now because of the experience tokens in General Veers, so he would kill Luke. So that's not ideal. But what I could do with Luke right away is just attack and kill General Veers. And I don't mind taking damage because look at Luke's lightsaber. When played, if attached unit is Luke Skywalker, heal him, heal all damage, and give him a shield token. Now, I could instead, though, because they've claimed the initiative, put the lightsaber on Luke. Luke goes up to 7 attack, and Vader has how much health? 10, 11. Minus 5 is 6. So Luke could actually kill Vader, and he gets a shield. So it would pop. So that's the better play. I want to take advantage of the healing ability, but we need to get Vader off the board as soon as we possibly can. So let's just do Vader's thing. Or Luke's thing, rather. Vader. I mean, that's scary. That's what he sees in the cave, right? Okay, so we're going to use 2 resources and put out Luke's lightsaber. And the amazing synergy of Luke's lightsaber on Luke. Luke is now a 7/8 with this on him. And, I don't want to stack it. I kind of want to put it like this so I can read it. And he gets a shield token as well. So we'll put this here. And it's just like, these are just all of Luke's awesome things. He's Voltroned up. He's ready to go. Now, Vader has passed, so is doing nothing. So then I'm going to attack with Luke into Vader. And Vader, as you can see, has 8, 9, 10, 11 health, -5, which is 6. And Luke is doing 4 plus the 3 power from Luke's lightsaber, which is 7. And that's enough to kill Vader. Now, Vader gets to do... by the way, on attack means only when he attacks, not when he is attacked. Gets to do his damage back, which just gets rid of Luke's shield. So, a huge swing in the way that the game is working. And when a leader is defeated, it simply flips back over to its leader side and goes back here. I think it's exhausted, too, when it does that. And then we just put these away. And now, also... on attack, we can give the X-Wing a shield, and we will. So now think about that. Look how far ahead Vader was, and now Luke has really stabilized the board, but Vader has more resources, and that was made possible by the insanity of Luke's lightsaber on Luke. Luke's lightsaber on not Luke would have allowed, a unit of similar power to kill Vader right there, but they would die too. But with the shield, my goodness, that was a big swing. And that's what happens in Star Wars Unlimited. Often when you flip the leaders, it's a huge swing turn. So last turn was amazing for Vader, and then this turn, Luke was able to kind of swoop back in. But if you look at it, Vader's got 3 cards behind, and Luke only has 1. So, and Vader has more resources. We'll see. We'll see. Nothing is set in stone. So at this point, it's time to draw 2 cards for Luke. It's the regroup phase. And then we will ready everything. And we will go back to Vader. And Vader is like, well, no, that stays exhausted. We'll draw 2. Okay. Aha! Nice! Now we're going to have some fun. And then we ready everything. And Vader is like... that was diabolical. I'm going to put the Super Laser Tech down as a resource because... well... let's think about what I want to do, actually. Open Fire just deals 4 damage. So Open Fire is amazing, except for the fact that they have all these shields. So we don't like that. And... we want to kill this Luke. Luke does not have a shield, and Luke has 8 health. So double Open Fire actually will kill Luke. And Luke cannot put a shield on himself. It's another unit. So these look really good. So I want at least 6 resources for that. And then with 3 other resources remaining, what could I play? Well, not the ATST. Unfortunately, I have to save this. So I could, though, just attack... into this with, General Veers or something, but that's not that great either. He only does 3 damage, and Open Fire needs... I need 5 damage, so that's not working. But I do have Vader. So I can play Mahdi and use Vader's ability to ping and finish off Luke, maybe? So I'm kind of planning it out, and I think this makes the most sense. So we're just going to put this down as our resource. I should have done that before I readied, by the way. Okay. Now, it's Vader's turn. What do we want to do? Well, to be cagey, I suppose. And... ugh. I don't want to attack... I'm going to just take advantage of doing 4 base damage with the TIE Advanced and just kind of delay and make Luke commit to the board first. I could play Mahdi and queue up a shield ping, but then they just kill my TIE Advanced for like no penalty without any benefit on my part. So I am going to do this. I'm just going to put 4 damage into Luke's base here. Oh, wait. I think it was at... I think they were... Were they both at 13? No, I was right. That's right. Okay. And now it's time to pass and switch back. All right. So... Oh, you know what? I did a terrible job. I didn't play anything as a resource yet. Okay, so what am I going to resource from this? Well, I'm actually going to resource my X-Wing, and I'll explain it in a moment. So, repair lets me heal damage from a unit or a base, which can be really sneaky, and then the restored arc just restores 1, which heals your base for 1 when it attacks. So, we could put this in play, and if we can maintain space, we could kind of just let this heal us back to victory. So, now that it's Luke's turn, I think the best play here is to kill General Veers with the Fleet Lieutenant and use up the shield, because the TIE Advanced is already attacked, so we can do that whenever we want, but we want to kill the unit that hasn't acted yet. So we're going to go ahead and swing the Fleet Lieutenant into Veers. That will pop his shield, but that will kill Veers. And then we come back here to Vader's side, and Vader's like, ouch, that was not what I was hoping for. I'm going to play Admiral Mahdi for 2. Luke is like, all right, I see what you did. And I think at this point, I don't want to kill Admiral Mahdi because he'll ready this and it'll get to attack again. So instead, I'm just going to ignore that, and I'm going to attack for 7 damage on the base with Luke, and then give the Fleet Lieutenant back the shield. Okay, and then now that that's happened, I'm going to 1, 2, 3. Now, again, sequencing. I could have just done open fire to try to kill right here, but now I'm going to do it. I'm going to open fire on Luke to give Luke 4 damage. Bam. And then I'm going to go back over here. And Luke has been hurt, but they don't know what we know, which is we have repair and the restore arc. I don't know what they have, but I know that I don't want Luke to die. So I am, as surprising as it might seem, going to just pay 1 and repair Luke for 3. Now, it's hard to know if I would do that without knowing what's in their hand, but there are removal cards that can do 4 damage like open fire, so they could easily have another one. There's also takedown and vanquish, although those are blue. So we just have to think about, do they have damage from their hand that could kill Luke? And Luke is so valuable to me right now that I am going to heal him. And so this goes to a 1. And then now Vader is like, oh God, you've completely destroyed my plans. And I hate this. I hate this game. I'm about to flip the table. I'm going to use Vader's ability, because I played an Imperial unit, which is Admiral Mahdi. And I'm going to do 1 damage. I could kill Admiral Mahdi, but instead, I'm going to just try and split the difference here. And I'm going to ping this and get rid of the shield and do 1 damage to the base. All right. And then Luke's side is like, okay, that's actually okay with me. And I will then pay 2 and put down the restored arc. It goes into play exhausted on the space arena. And then now I am going to sadly, because I can't kill Luke. Even if I pinged Luke for 1 and hit him again, it doesn't kill him. And I'd rather just remove this from the board. But as you can see, it doesn't matter. Why doesn't it matter? Because look at this. I have 10 health. And Luke can do 7. And this thing hasn't even gone yet. And there's another space unit. So it's looking so bad for Vader right now. The turn where Luke killed Vader with his lightsaber and the shield seems to be the real momentum swinger. Playing this instead of open fire would not have done anything for me because it's not like it would block Luke from just hitting my base for 7, and it wouldn't have killed Luke. So I took a gamble on hopefully being able to open fire and kill Luke. I had no idea that they would have a heal. They did. This is awful for me. So we open fired and oops. We did kill that. Now it's Luke's turn, and Luke's going to say, do I want to do 2 damage and kill the TIE Advanced? Yeah, let's just clean up space. So we'll do that. TIE Advanced goes down. Vader will claim the initiative, and Luke will pass. So it's time to draw 2. And we get another Luke's lightsaber, which is hysterical, but it is unique. So remember that diamond means it's unique. We cannot put 2 in play at the same time. So we're going to know that we want to flip this for a resource and put it down. However, I could not put it down and save it because maybe I don't need any more resources, but I'm okay with having a resource right there. We will ready everything, and it's Vader's turn. And Vader says, okay, I'm going to draw 2. Ooh, interesting. This is too little too late, but this is a card that I was thinking about as removal. Overwhelming Barrage is just an amazing card. It gives a friendly unit +2/+2 for the round. So for attacks and defense, it gets that benefit. Then it deals its damage equal to its power divided as you choose among any number of units. So this is great, except all I have is Admiral Mahdi. So it's not good. So, Vader's going to ready everything, but there is effectively nothing that we can do. Now, we can play the ATST and ready it with Admiral Mahdi's death, but unfortunately, we can't do both of these things at the same time. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We could put this in play for 10, but we would need 11 resources to make that happen. So instead, we're not going to play any resources. We're just going to put this down. What would I do with Vader at this point? I guess do this. Now, by the way, I'm going to put the epic action counter token on Darth Vader just to remind us. He already flipped. You can only flip once per game because it's an epic action. So he can't do that again. So we're going to play this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And Luke is going to be like, boy, I feel really bad for you, Father, but this is what has to happen. And check this out. On board. If I attack right now with Luke, which I'm going to do, Luke is just going to put 7 damage on the base. And Vader's going to come back and see the writing on the wall. And the writing on the wall is there's 4 damage in play from these 2 ships. I can't kill them, even if I wanted to. So all I can do is just go down swinging. And how do I go down swinging? Well, I'm going to attack Luke with Admiral Mahdi. Admiral Mahdi will die, and I will ready the ATST. So Luke takes 2 damage, or he goes to 2 damage, rather. And it's back to Luke's turn, and Luke is like, okay, fine. I see what you're doing. I'm going to attack with the Restored Arc and do 2 damage to the base, and restore 1, because it heals. And it's all but over. The ATST, out of rage and frustration, will attack into Luke and do 6 damage. And this will, in fact, kill Luke. Luke will die. because he has 8 health and he's damaged for 2. But Luke does 7 back to the ATST, so they both lose. And Luke will flip over. Oop. Like this. Go back here. And the lightsaber will be discarded. No carryover of damage from the overwhelm because Luke absorbed it all. And we'll come back here to Luke. And we will attack with the final X-Wing and do 1-2 damage. And it's over. Victory. So, we did it. We played a full 2-player game and explained the basics of most of the aspects of this game. There are some things that we didn't get to, but I hope we covered enough here about how to play Star Wars Unlimited and how to use Tabletop Simulator such that if you want to play this on PC and test it out, all you need to do is get Tabletop Simulator. I'll put a link in the description below. Or if you want to buy a 2-player starter or get some boosters or something, I'll put links to product down below that you can check out for this game. I think it's super fun. I play it both digitally and physically, mostly physically, and I'm having a great time with this game. This next set comes out in July. Some of the cards have already been spoiled if you want to check that out. Everyone, if you have any questions about the game or Tabletop Simulator, put those in the description below, please, and I will love to answer those and help you out. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.